Okay, so you've figured out your story and you've got it clear, it's written down on paper, the background to who you are, why you're doing what you're doing and what you hope to achieve, okay? Great. Now you need to get to the strategy. And this is where we start. It's very important for the creative communications, for everything. What does a strategy give you? First of all, it simplifies decision making. Once you know your route map forward, it's much easier to make the right decisions in terms of which direction you're going to go. It helps you communicate to the public. When we're doing creative advertising, it's very easy to say, there's an open brief. You can just come up with anything and do what you want. But actually, it doesn't work like that. We need to be targeted. We need to be known what we're going to be saying and to who in order for it to be effective. So it allows us to communicate much more clearly to your audience, to the public. Having a strategy can create loyalty and trust. If you can have people believing in you and they see the good work that you're doing and how you're delivering it, there's more chance that they're going to warm towards your brand message. And that's how you get loyalty and trust. They start believing in you. A strategy also helps you acquire resources, whether they're financial, you're looking for support that you're going to get from donations or from organizations that you want to get support. Human resources, volunteers who might want to come forward. If they believe in you and they believe in your strategy, then there's more chance they might want to help. And partnerships, companies that might want to have joint ventures with you or build you into their program, or join forces with you in some way. Again, this comes back to them believing in you as a brand. And that's what a strategy can help you achieve. Rather than no one knows what you're saying or what you stand for, you just exist. So it's very clear. It can help articulate the mission. And again, that's why I say for creative people, that's really important. We need to know what it is you want us to achieve. It's not just about coming up with something which is going to be get awareness. We need to know what we're trying to do in order for it to be effective. And it can drive organizational cohesion. If everyone's on the same page with the strategy, then it's not that you're going to have many moving parts all doing different things. You all need to be going in the same direction. So that's why it's important to have a strategy. A starting point for this, when you're looking at your strategy and your brief, is to know what your objectives are with your campaign or with your communications. Because this is going to define what sort of ideas you buy. So for example, in the case of NGOs, sometimes it's just create awareness. You want something that's going to go out there, get seen, and people are aware of the work that you're doing. And that's that. You're not asking anything more of them. Maybe you will later, but you want them to know you're there and you exist. So strengthen the brand. And if you look at advertising, some advertising that we see every day is purely that simple. It's just brand awareness. It's a picture, it's a product, it's a logo, and doesn't ask anything else. Not trying to sell, but just create awareness. So that might be your objective. Or you could be appealing for donations. Now, appealing for donations can be a lot easier if you are well known, because people can be suspicious, like, who are you? What am I donating to? If someone stops you in the street and they're wearing a badge, you might want to know a little bit more about who I'm going to give this money to. So appealing for donations is not easy, particularly when it's done through advertising. In previous days, in the old times before internet, where you can directly sort of connect with people through social media, we would be doing direct response advertising where you've got the ad, you've got a coupon, and that ad's got to work a lot harder to get someone to fill in that coupon and send in a check. But that was the old way of doing it. Of course, these days you have a direct dialogue with the people that you're trying to target and appeal to them. But you still have to have them believing in what you're doing in order for them to reach into their pocket. So the advertising message has got to work harder if it's appealing for donations. Because remember, it's a jungle out there. A lot of people are asking for the same things you are, so why you? You might want to encourage participation. This can be a fun run. It can be sort of a beach cleaning, for example. You want to get the public involved in what you're doing. And there are many channels that you can do this, particularly through social media and through people's connections and contacts. And people love the idea sometimes of getting involved. But if that is your message, if that's your objective, then your communications has got to be really clear that that's what you're asking people to do. It's no good telling them you exist and the work you're doing without reminding them, please come on Sunday to get involved in this event and help, And it might be recruitment. You're looking for volunteers, or you're looking for people to come and join you. Then that's a different type of message that you're putting out there. And again, it's got to be really direct and clear. The other thing I would say is that when we come to look at the different messages for different sort of objectives, it's no good putting 3 or 4 of these into one campaign or one ad, because then you just confuse people. People will only remember the one thing that you're saying. But if you show them 3 or 4 messages, then they may pick up some of it, they may not. And I see this with a lot of advertising, trying to put too many things into one ad or one message. My analogy for this is if you've got 5 balls and you throw those balls to someone, they might catch 1 or 2, and drop the others. But if you have 1 ball and you throw it to them, there's a good chance they're going to hold that ball. So it's similar with messaging. The more simple it is, the easier it is for people to catch the message. So this is why you've got to think up front, what are you trying to achieve? And that's going to affect whatever you come up with. So how do you go about this? I'll give you some examples of a communication sort of strategy where you say, okay, we're going to create an online film that will create awareness and drive people to our website. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Now that can have challenges in itself. You've got sort of budget, resources. Can you do a film? In a lot of cases, people can't get access to that kind of thing. But that's one example. You could hold an event to get public interest. If you can find a way to do that, to get permission to stage something somewhere, sometimes that's very successful as well. And sometimes, as I'm going to show a bit later on, that also converts into a campaignable idea, because you can film the event, and that video then becomes something that you can put into the internet and into the social media space. And again, so it kind of like serves 2 purposes. You can create posters and leaflets, hand leaflets out in the street. That's proven, tried and tested sort of method to do it. You might do a social media campaign where, and that's also a very crowded space, and a social media campaign also has to work very, very hard in order to sort of get people involved. But, can be very effective if done well. Or PR. Making connections with publications, with journalists. It might be that you don't need to do any films or any advertising, but you rely on PR to tell your story. And sometimes with an organization, it's all of that. Everything I've just mentioned makes up a campaign. But that is where a clear strategy is really important, because you can't have different messages in different channels. It all has to be singing the same song. So that's why all of this comes together to help you define your message. Think about the influences, the influencing factors that might affect the way that people look at this and respond. You can say consideration for others. Now, sometimes that works. There are people that are not selfish and don't just think of themselves and think, well, for the sake of humanity, I'm going to help those people. That's something you can appeal to. It's an influencing factor. Appealing to a sense of humanity, touching hearts. Again, a lot of charity campaigns do go down this path. Showing a starving child, is a kind of a way to do it. But sometimes that can work, sometimes it can't work, depending on sort of whether there's empathy. Another one that I think is very strong is success stories. If you can tell people the work that you're doing, if you can show them the results, there's even more chance they're going to believe in you and want to get involved or donate money, because they can see the good that you're doing. And some of the most successful campaigns I've ever seen don't even have any advertising or fancy films. It can be just simply sending out direct messages to people, or these days through the internet, through social media. Tell them what you do, show them the good that you've done, and that can be very influential. Other influencing factors, as I've mentioned before, is empathy. Do people relate to what you're trying to do? Can make the difference. Sometimes in the past, if there's been an earthquake somewhere, some people might think, well, that's so far away, so remote for me. But when it's on your doorstep, maybe there's more chance that you feel you want to get involved and help. And again, creativity can affect whether or not you're influential with your messaging, as I've said before. and well-written copy, the right use of words, the right use of creative tools can influence a lot if done well. So these are just the influencing factors that you can think about when you're embarking on that journey. When you're thinking about where to start I would say, find someone like me. If not someone like me, find a good creative partner. Now, we all know people that might be working in sort of creative industries. It could be photographers, production people, or creative people that are either freelance designers or they're sort of working in an agency. One thing I found, my experience working in ad agencies, and I've worked in some of the biggest, is that creative people always want to help you. They do, because every day we're working on products and brands that might not necessarily give us a lot of excitement creatively. And wanting to be creative is a factor with creative people. They want to do good work. They want to have work that they can feel proud of. And sometimes we're called upon to do just typical stuff, typical campaigns, and it's fine, what we call bread and butter. So when an NGO comes calling, I've seen many people get excited about that brief. It's important for you to know this because you can play that card. And when I've been involved with helping NGOs in the past, and there is no budget, I will use creativity as an incentive to my people. So I'll say, we're going to do this. Of course, we're not earning any money, we're doing it pro bono, but we can come up with some interesting work. And I would say to the client, allow us that freedom. Allow us to do something interesting for you, and we willingly want to do it. And I've even found that I've gone to film directors and production companies with a good idea and say, look, we have no money for this, but this is a very interesting idea. Can you help? Would you want to help? Chances are they'll say yes, because they're used to shooting the same stuff every day. They're used to doing boring advertising for money. So when you find a creative partner, that's an incentive for them that's worth you knowing about. They're more likely to want to get involved if you give them creative freedom. So bear that in mind. Involve them in your problem. Don't just come to them and say, I want to film, here's the story, and can you film it? Start at the very beginning. Tell them what you're trying to achieve and what are the challenges that you face. Get that dialogue going. And then discuss possible storylines with them. Creativity is not exclusive to creative people with that title. Everyone comes up with ideas. And to me, the collaboration of that, discussing ideas, brainstorming together, gives up really, really good ideas, rather than we do the idea and we just give it to you. So get involved with them. Let them bear witness to your cause. Let them see. I remember once when I was working in an agency in my earlier days in London, a very senior creative guy who was quite successful, living a middle-class life, 2 cars, happy family, went off to on a trip for Oxfam. He went overseas and went to do a visit to, I think it may have been Bangladesh. When he came back, he was a changed person. He couldn't deal with his life anymore. He said, I can't live my successful life every day seeing what I've seen. So it affected him, and he was so passionate about the work that they were then doing for Oxfam. So this is how, let them get involved in your cause and believe in your cause. They're more likely to be passionate about helping you. The best creative relationships are collaborative. It's not them and us. It's not supplier, and client. You work together to get the best results. But creative people will want to help you. They will. Then you've got to write the brief. Now this is important, as I said before, because if someone comes to me and says, do me a commercial, do me a film, and I say, well, okay, what do you want to say? Oh, well, look, here's our website, just come up with something. I can't. It's very hard when there's too much freedom to define the message and come up with the idea, the simple idea. We need to be sort of shown the direction. So some of the things that you need to know for a brief, and you're going to see a template today which will help you to kind of go through this process yourself, is when we're looking at a challenge and the audience, we want to know who the audience is. Who are we targeting? General public? School children? Corporations? Who are they? Then we want to know, what do they do or believe right now? So this is something that we have in our briefing template that's very important to me. If we know that they think this right now, they don't know anything about your organization and they've vaguely heard of it, what do we want them to believe? Wow, you're doing important, great work. This is amazing. The more support you get, you can make a difference. What are the barriers to this? So then we can refer to some of the challenges that you might face. You know, as I've mentioned before, they feel impartial, they feel that there's no empathy with it, it's a crowded space, everyone's talking. Think about what are the challenges and the barriers you face. What are the influencing factors, as I've just gone through? And that should lead you to deciding, what do we do or say? And that's the important thing, because that's the beginning of the creative process, that proposition. Try to write that proposition down as one sentence or two sentences, no more. If it takes like 3 or 4 paragraphs, that's not a proposition, that's a story. So when you go through this thinking process, it helps you define what is your proposition. But it's really important to get the creative process started. So from there, I think it's a great point for you to think about, what is your brief?